We are getting started strong after lunch with the panel on cybersecurity ecosystem. And I'm happy to introduce our moderator, Nupur Davis. She's a Chief Product and Chief Information Security Officer for Comcast.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our cybersecurity ecosystems panel. This is the hardest time of the day, right? Everybody's had like a great lunch and you really would rather take a quick nap, but this is gonna be a really exciting panel. We have such great panelists, so wake up, everybody. So we have Donna Dodson with us from, she's the Chief Cybersecurity Advisor for NIST. She is also the director of NIST's National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. We have Evelyn Ramali, I hope I said that right, who is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Policy Analysis and Development at the NTIA. And she's also the Acting Director for the Digital Economy at the Department of Commerce. And then we have Boyden Rohner with us, who is the Deputy Director for the NCIC at the DHS. So in preparing for this panel, I, of course, read up a lot about you ladies. And what a impressive, and I mean, I'm just in awe of all of you. Stellar credentials, deep knowledge, just so many years spent in this industry and in this area. So, but besides all that, this panel is unique. I'm sure you have noticed that this is an all-female panel. So, right? So, you know, that is still a rarity. So a lot of security conferences and policy conferences, you know, you guys have heard the news, right? Like they'll have entire sessions and there won't be a single female speaker. So I'm thrilled to not only be in the company of these absolutely accomplished women, but the fact that we are all ladies up here. So with that, let me get started. And the first question I have is for you, Boyden. So please introduce yourself, of course, and then just a brief overview of, you know, what areas are you focused in the cybersecurity policy area right now? You know, what are some of the key initiatives that you're working on?
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Boyden Rohner with the National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center, also known as the NCIC, part of the Department of Homeland Security. I think our Undersecretary was here earlier today, if I'm not mistaken. The NCIC is the operational arm of DHS for doing cybersecurity. That means that we're doing the incident response and hunt missions. We are doing the technical assessments of critical infrastructure and departments and agencies, the federal executive civilian branch. We lead training and exercises, and we do analysis on the data that we collect during our different engagements. So our big priorities right now are getting ready for the election season and supporting state and locals in their role to secure their infrastructure. Additionally, we are just working on building up our capacity since there's a lot more attention to this part of Homeland Security than there ever has been before. So that's a big priority for us right now.
Getting ready for the elections, that's not like a trivial job there, right? So, yeah. And Donna, how about the key cyber initiatives that you're working on with, and then especially for the work that you do? You know, if you could kind of talk a little bit about the initiatives that may have a particular focus, like either in the federal space or in the private space, or, you know, somewhere where there's overlap. That would be really interesting.
So I'm Donna Dodson. I'm with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and it's so nice to be here today. Thank you for inviting me, and it's nice to see so many friendly faces in the audience, especially those all the way in the back. So at NIST, our cybersecurity program has really grown in the last 10 years, and it encompasses research all the way through the development and engineering side, with some of our fundamental research in quantum-resistant cryptography, cryptography for lightweight devices, vulnerability management, identity management, et cetera, all the way to things like our framework for improving critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, sometimes called the NIST framework, but our tradition in risk management overall, as well as our National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, where we work to take these standards and best practices, working closely with industry to build them out, and to be able to demonstrate them in use so that we have different business sectors really being able to understand what their big challenges are, and then how do we address those instead of cybersecurity first, business second. And then a new area, which NIST and NTIA and others at the Department of Commerce are working, and that's in the area of privacy. And NIST work in developing a framework for privacy. And I think we'll talk about that a little later.
Excellent. So not just one or two things, you're doing a lot in this space. And Evelyn, how about you? About NTIA's work in cybersecurity and any particular initiatives that are top of mind for you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Nooper. And it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you to Georgetown and to my fellow panelists and Nooper. It is always such a special thing to be speaking with other women in the field, and so it's very special to be here today. So about NTIA, NTIA is the President's Advisor on Internet policy. So we look at issues across the information and telecommunications sector and advise the President, the White House, the Secretary of Commerce on issues that affect that industry. On the cybersecurity side, we're really focused at NTIA on trying to build the market for cybersecurity. We use something called the multi-stakeholder model process to bring stakeholders together, industry, civil society, and government into the room to talk about the hard issues that are facing the sector today. NTIA has worked on internet policy for decades. We have always been focused on working to keep that environment stable, secure, and open for business and innovation. And so we really try to bring stakeholders together to look at the cybersecurity problem in a way that will allow the industry itself, working with civil society to harness the invention that's happening out there to solve problems. So most recently, we have been partnering very closely with our colleagues at DHS and NIST on botnet, countering botnets as part of Executive Order 13800, writing a report about how we as a community and ecosystem can take on that issue, and also building out our cybersecurity multi-stakeholder model to look at challenges in the IoT space as well. One of our emphases as well is trying to expand that to bring in more of the international coordination on that and the international dialogue. As we're seeing at NTIA, we're seeing, Donna mentioned privacy, we're seeing more of these pushes across the globe to take more of a top-down approach to the cybersecurity challenges we're all facing. And so one thing that we really want to emphasize going forward too is how we take the good collaboration that we're doing domestically on these issues to bring all the stakeholders into the room to talk about how if we use voluntary processes that build on the private sector innovation, that we can expand that globally to have a better ecosystem-wide approach to solving these problems. So.
Excellent. So I'll just build on that for you, Evelyn. So two things. So you talked about international. What are the agencies or groups that you work with at the international level? And then also, if we just focus on the botnet and the 24 recommendations that came out of the department, are there any kind of particular themes that are like more critical than others, that are particular challenges if you were to rank them, or to, what comes like top of mind?
On the international piece, NTIA works very closely in the internet governance community, and so we work with ICANN, which is in charge of domain name system policy globally. We work with the Internet Engineering Task Force, which looks at internet standards, and many of the other NGOs that are out there as well, OECD, APEC, ASEAN, coordination. So we really just look out across the community, but we also work very hard to have connections with each of our counterparts in country, so that we're working both on the bilateral relationship as well as in the international organizations as well. In terms of,
I really like that kind of focus that you have on working with kind of engineering groups as well as with IETF and ICANN as well as with that's great.
Absolutely, and that's NTIA, NIST, and DHS as well. We have all long been committed to the idea that it's really the technologists, it's the industry members who are out there operating in the environment and often have the best ideas about how to make a change. Sometimes a problem that they might be facing is just a lack of a relationship or a coordination channel, and that's a place that government can come in and help to make those connections. In terms of the botnet action items, this was a very hard question, and when we published the final report in May, a question that did come up was how are we as an ecosystem community going to attack this and prioritize? Because we came up with over a dozen action items, 5 top-level goals. And so one thing, a difference between the midterm report and the final report was that we agreed to the president, to the White House, that we would come back in several months with a roadmap that actually mapped out where we could get started. We know that resources are slim on the government, civil society, and industry side, and we can't do everything at once, and many of these activities build on the other ones. Where we're getting started is some key places, and Donna will talk about this.
Right. This kind of bringing that action, the actionable, here's some real world examples, is a place that this is happening at our center as an example. So how do we take this work and really make it actionable, which I think NTIA and NIST are really focused on instead of just a lot of conversation.
Absolutely.
Only.
And so by actionable, what do you mean? Do you mean like, taking it to the next level, the standards, the guidelines? Do you mean
yes.
actual working prototypes? Like, what does that mean? So, yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the work, well, I'll let Donna speak to the work that the NCCOE is doing. In our regard, one place that NTIA kicked off was we kicked off our first multi-stakeholder convening that's falling under the work that we're doing under the botnet report, focused on software component transparency. And that effort is really to bring the community together to talk about how we can give the market more transparency, more information into what software components are actually embedded in the devices that they're using in this new IoT environment and the traditional enterprise environment that they're working in as well. The hope is that through this process, as we work together to determine what type of information will be most helpful and how vendors and developers can actually communicate it effectively to their customers and users, the market can then use this information to develop additional cybersecurity tools. So that's one of the ways that we're bringing the community together. There's been development work already done, but nothing has really taken off in the marketplace, and so we're exploring what the market barriers are, why one approach to this hasn't been sort of leading the field, exploring that so we can come to some outcomes that, again, the market can pick up and start building more tools to secure the environment.
So just to build on that, Donna, what are those standards and tools, and where have you made progress, and where do you see your next big challenges to make this?
So we have been working with standards bodies like the Internet Engineering Task Force on different protocols and capabilities that could actually be implemented in, for example, Internet of Things devices to help address the distributed denial of service attacks or the botnet kinds of attacks. But in addition to that, we are very focused today at NIST on providing capabilities, providing examples that can really be picked up by the business community. So we're in our lab, but we're not in our lab as just the government, but working closely with industry and academia to take these kinds of protocols and be able to demonstrate them out and make them actionable for people to implement in products and services. Now, that is an important goal of the work that we are doing, but that's certainly not our only goal. Our goal also, our second big goal here, is to be able to work with the business community to be able to understand the importance of doing this. That means that we need to be able, not just as cybersecurity professionals, to talk to ourselves and among ourselves, but really to be able to talk to the business community and put out guidelines and best practices in ways, develop those in ways that the business community can really understand. And this is not just, oh, here's another cybersecurity problem, I'm gonna send this over here, and if I'm lucky, I won't hear about it again, right? But to be able to address at both the business and the technical level, how to take these protocols and implement them and understand what those different sorts of business challenges are. So we have some projects going on at the center where we, at our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, where we have communities come together. Those communities include technologists. We're very fortunate to have Comcast working with us on some of the projects there, but also from that business side, DHS actively works with us hand in hand at the center on these projects so that we can demonstrate to a chief financial officer what the challenge is and why does it matter that they address it, and to be able to say to them, and here is a way to address that problem.
That's excellent. That's great. I can't go past you, though, without asking you about the claim to fame for most cyber people and engineers is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, of course. And I know that we've had the 1.1 release. So if you'll just briefly talk to us about what is that big delta? What are the things that you would?
So the Framework for Improving Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity builds collectively on the work that the community together helped us develop. It also developed over the decades of experience that NIST had looking at cybersecurity from a risk management approach. This spring, we put out version 1.1 of the framework. We have always recognized that as technology evolves, as technology is used in different environments, that the framework would continue to evolve. So 1.1 addresses things in a more comprehensive view around, for example, identity management. Supply chain is another big issue that comes up very often. And the supply chain discussion in the framework really fleshed out from version 1 to version 1.1. We're very excited too from our roadmap of activities. Our international engagement with the framework continues as there are standards efforts in ISO around framework, but we're also seeing adoption by many other national governments for to meet their needs, so working with them. working collaboratively across the community to be able to showcase different examples, different business profiles. The communications industry really started that profiling work with the framework. We've seen things in manufacturing, in finance, in a number of areas, as well as individual organizations demonstrating how they are using the framework and how it helps them in communicating with their supply chain. And it helps them communicate risk within their organizations from a board level all the way to the bits and bytes folks.
That's great. One of our key initiatives at Comcast right now is around identity. I can, and it's, I think, becoming just more and more important for everyone, right? With the perimeter disappearing and IoT everywhere and the cloud, and we have people who don't log into our network now for days, and they can do their entire day's job. So guidance around identity is so useful to, very timely for all of us. So thank you for that. Boyden, how about, it looks like, you guys have been focused a lot on kind of the risk management area. So any particular, core challenges that you're addressing there that you would, like to, or any other core challenges, of course, that you're focused on?
Absolutely. Well, I can't imagine that our Undersecretary got away without saying anything about the National Risk Management Center that stood up this morning.
About it, yes.
So I think that's a perfect example about how we recognize that we need to put more energy towards this problem and stood up an entire center as a result. And to my fellow panelists' point, that's meant to be a very interactive place full of industry and the government so that we speak in a way that resonates with who we're trying to speak to. So I think that's probably the biggest initiative that DHS has made in the last couple of years to address this. Other than that, from the NCIC side of the house, which is distinct from the National Risk Management Center, we're really focused on cybersecurity operations and engaging across the United States as much as we can, and trying to find other partners who can force multiply with us, working closely with the Department of Defense to have them support us, working with schools and state and local governments. So that's really where we're going.
How big is the NCIC? Can you kind of describe it, what kind of competencies, how big?
Great, super question. Yes, the NCIC is a little less than 600 people, split between DC region, Arlington, Idaho National Labs in Idaho, and then Pensacola, Florida. We have grown a lot in the last couple of years. You probably are familiar with our former incarnations, which were the US CERT and ICS CERT and NCC. I imagine those brands are probably familiar to most of you. They no longer exist. They've been absorbed by the NCIC, although you won't know that if you go on our website because we haven't updated it yet for a lot of complicated reasons, including we're waiting for the CISA legislation to come through, which I'm sure also Undersecretary spoke about. But we really see ourselves as a national CERT. That's our tagline. And what that means is that we are there to be the incident responders for the federal executive civilian branch and for any critical infrastructure owners and operators who may need us. We partner a lot with the international community. We have the CERT-to-CERT relationship with the FiveG, and pretty much every continent except for Antarctica has sent folks to come and take a tour of our operation. We also do something special, which is our technical assessments. So our cyber hygiene program, where we're doing continuous scanning of anybody who wants to sign up, and that's a free service. In exchange for us giving you the benefit of our continuous scans, we get the data that we can then do trending on, so we find that really valuable. And then just got back from Colorado Springs, where I met with all of the adjutant generals from each of the states, and that was a big place. We did a lot of exercises with states on how they're going to respond to an incident. Elections aside, what are they going to do when the ransomware attack hits their city government or something like that? So we're working.
Which happened recently.
Yes, it did.
City of Atlanta, right?
So we're trying to give them scenarios where they can exercise their incident response plan, identify their own gaps, and then help them get better.
Awesome, awesome. So a long time ago, when I was at Carnegie Mellon, we worked with the DHS to set up the first US CERT instance. So, and now it's no longer there, you're telling me. So.
Well, all the people are still there, and all the expertise is still
Yes.
there, I have to tell you, and the email address is still there, and
Yes,
so is our website.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is a big branding challenge for us.
That CERT and
Yeah.
CCERT. I
Yes.
can go
Yeah.
back to the NIST, when
Oh, wow.
NIST started with the protocols,
Yes.
working with
With
Carnegie
them.
Mellon. It was
That's
very exciting times.
those were exciting
and it's great
days.
to see all the wonderful things DHS is doing.
It really is.
Well, the people are still there for the most part, so we haven't lost the expertise.
That's the most important
Yeah.
bit. Yes, absolutely. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the gaps that you are seeing. In gaps that you think should be addressed and we should look at both from a policy point of view and then a technical point of view. So, start with you. What are you seeing as gaps in your area, and what worries you the most, and what are you, you kind of go there, sit there, and go, oh, I wish we had either a policy or a technical solution to address these.
Well, I know one thing that's keeping us busy at NTIA is just thinking through the future environment, both the risks and the opportunities coming with 5G, which really begins to pull together the IoT environment, AI, big data, all the other advancements in that environment. We're going to see all of that converging together, and there's tremendous opportunity, as we see with things like AI and big data and machine learning that can help us with cybersecurity diagnostics and forensics and good advancements. But there's also obviously risks that come along with using those technologies, things that maybe haven't anticipated. And also I think a lot of confusion. Those who are in the industry, I think, understand 5G well, and it's where it's going and what it can mean for society and globally as well as we continue advancing our information and communications technology. I think that there is a lot of confusion, though, amongst those who aren't as deeply ingrained about what it means and what the threat environment is. And so, that's something that we're beginning to think through. We spend time explaining how anything we do in this environment needs to build on the good cybersecurity work that's already happened, that the traditional network is not going away. These are enhancements, and we need to keep doing the partnerships that we've been doing and working together to make sure that environment is secure and again, leveraging all of the good advancements that are going to help us get there. But I think that's also why we think the botnet report is so fundamental, because again, it sets out this approach that is about leveraging the ecosystem players themselves, the advancement that's happening, and that's what we're trying to pull together in the roadmap to give us, looking out, at least 1-2 years to say, okay, as we progress along these good the baseline work that NIST has already started, and then leveraging that into things that the industry themselves can pick up to do certifications, that all of this are building blocks to a more secure 5G and IoT environment as we see more of those smart cities advance. So it's a matter of...
Is it more, 5G's come up several times today. So, I wanted to just dig a little bit into that. Is it the kind of unknown part of it that, it's a new technology, new ways of operating, new ways of using, is it that side of it that is worrisome? Is it, what in particular about 5G is...
Do you mean in terms of the sort of misunderstandings that we're seeing out there? I think it's perhaps because some of the standards are still developing and it's still moving in the direction. Questions about what that environment is actually going to look like. And so because I think there are still some unknowns as the environment is emerging and developing, that causes concern amongst some of our government counterparts. So,
and that's totally understandable. And I think it goes across the board. When something that potentially big is imminent, you kind of have to sit there and go, okay, what does this mean for cyber?
And we see it with a lot of emerging technologies. There's a trigger reaction that this is new, we don't completely understand it. How do we need to maybe control it? And one thing that we do a lot at NTIA is try to make sure that we're communicating that let's take a step back and see how the market is already responding, how security professionals are already responding, and how do we keep moving in that right direction, so not creating new barriers that government might create to the market itself solving a security problem.
Awesome. And Donna, same question for you. So the gaps.
So in the 5G area, as an example, NIST and Department of Homeland Security are actively working in the 5G standard space, and will continue to do that as we build on the good work of LTE and kind of what's coming next, and helping people to understand how these new features can be used, what some of these new features really are about, how to think about configuration management from the technical side, all the way up to the policy side from that risk management approach. So we're actively working with that community, and we're excited to see the changes that are coming. It feeds nicely into our security and IoT program, where we have a number of projects. We have a new document that will be out in the next couple of months on security and IoT, to give folks an opportunity to think about how these pieces fit together. We're working very actively in cloud and mobility, as we're thinking about how to bring more trust into the cloud, working collaboratively with industry, up and down the technical stack, and how you can take the policies that you need as an organization to implement cloud and be able to have confidence in what's actually happening today and show that visibility. So that's particularly exciting for us. We have work going on, of course, in the big data area in terms of AI and machine learning, being able to look at that, provide some common understanding as what is AI, what is machine learning, not necessarily defining it, but being able to understand those characteristics, what data looks like, what the different models around machine learning and AI can be, and how to think about results in that space. So we have a lot of work that you'll see coming out soon in that area. We are continuing, of course, in our work in cryptography and key management, to help people think about agility as we're seeing new algorithms and new changes in this space, and being able to address some of the challenges that exist as we think about quantum computing. So we're really touching in a number of spaces, bringing that privacy perspective to risk management as we look at some of our traditional, I think I heard the words today once or twice as I was listening to this on the way in, around FISMA, and some of the work that we've done in the control catalogs, being able to look at both security and privacy together, and building on top of that with some of our new work that we're doing with NTIA and others at Commerce.
So, one thing that you said, I took a note down because I want to follow up with you, is, big data and data science, right? So one of the issues that I'm worried about in my own security shop at Comcast is, we're building these big machine learning, big data platforms for just doing security analysis, and I worry about how do we secure those? I mean, they have everything from, total serverless platforms, right, where you don't even have a container to secure, right? And so any work that you're doing in that area would be really helpful to us if you're, because there's nobody that I know of that's looking at that, kind of that end-to-end big data pipelines. Is how the heck do you secure those? Right?
So there's a number of research institutes that I'm aware of that are looking at this problem, but from the NIST perspective, it's really from that AI and machine learning perspective, it's across the board on that trusted environment that where security is a piece, but certainly not the only piece that we are looking at. So that's some work going on in our information technology laboratory, but we're really bringing the collective of NIST as a whole to help with that challenge.
That's great. We should talk after this. So, same question for you. So, if you want to, we can talk about the risk management, but really any area that you're want to talk to us about, where you see potential to fill gaps.
When you first posited the question, Nupur, I hate to say it, but I get a little depressed at this question because
there's so many gaps.
Well, because what I would say is that while there is a lot to be optimistic about, and I'm so glad that Evelyn and Donna have talked about the work they're doing in FiveG and things like that, what we're seeing, or what my team is seeing in day-to-day incident response, is that it's back to the basics that need to be done, and to sort of use the term from my Navy days, after there's an incident, they do a safety stand down, they go back to the basics, and I feel like that needs to be continually at the forefront of people's minds. So many times we go to an incident engagement, and there's a subliminal or a subterranean sort of eye roll about what happened that enabled the victim to become a victim, and that's where I'm depressed about. But the good news is we know what needs to be done there. We just need to work on the motivation to get people to do it. So so that's my contribution to the gaps.
That is such a good point. I have to tell you, I have several members of my team here, but we have kind of like our 10 initiatives, long-term, that we work on, and it has all kinds of cool things on it, like blockchain and cloud, and this year we actually added a back to the basics, because those core capabilities of doing patching and scanning and that that basic stuff, the basic bread making, and that is, you think you have solved that, and it's just we continuously need to refocus on that. So that's a really good point. Not glamorous, but oh my gosh, does it need to be done? So yeah, awesome. So I think I am going to skip to topic that I think is important to us, which is workforce and diversity, especially in our this area of cyber. So, depending on which stat you go with, just women in cybersecurity is anywhere from like 11% to the most optimistic statistic is about 20%, right? Which is still like dismal. So thoughts about that? What are you doing in your area? What do you think we can do more collectively? And I'm just going to open this up for all of us. What can we be doing to move that needle? I have to tell you, I have in the next rest of this year and next year, we have about 100 people that we have to hire in my area, and it is so difficult to find good talent. And the fact that we have 50% of our population that is not represented in that talent pool is just not right for business and not right for so many reasons. So Yes, absolutely right. So please.
So NIST has the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, and certainly the diversity of that workforce and how do we prepare and how do we meet the demands of today and that we meet the demands of tomorrow is really the focus of our work. As the lead agency for NICE and working collaboratively across the government and with industry. So we have some work going on from the K through 12, from the when you're at universities and beyond and that workforce training. I think also the program, and in response to much of what we see from different organizations, how do we ensure that we have the right kinds of training for people? Is that the classic four-year education? How do we give people the opportunity to be able to work closely with technology, to be able to work in the policy space, and be thinking about these across the board? That diversity piece is particularly critical. And as we're looking at areas like data science and being able to look at AI and having that diversity as we're building out these capabilities becomes incredibly critical to ensuring that we have real results that we can rely on this space. NIST has hosted workshops for teachers in the high school age and that sort of thing, working very closely to think about certificates that one can get to be able to demonstrate their competency in that space, to be able to help employers be able, working closely with DHS, to be able to work with employers, to be able to articulate the kinds of things that they need through the workforce framework. So bringing the workforce framework and the cybersecurity framework together and really give the tools back to industry so that they can have these conversations, not just, again, from a cybersecurity perspective, but with your HR department to be able to articulate what kinds of skills that you need and different ways to get those skills. And I think it's about that dialogue that's critically important. I do believe that as we continue, we need to find ways to be able to demonstrate excellence. And I'm going to pick on a colleague in the very back of the room, because she and I have, Jean Camp and I have talked about this in the past. What kinds of tools and capabilities can we have to be able to demonstrate excellence in this space that perhaps even go beyond some of the important work that everybody does in college with the capture the flag? What are some other creative ways that we can bring in a more diverse workforce to make it interesting and fun for a much broader population of people? So there's lots of creative ideas, and I think we're at a point now where we can really take action on those ideas.
I can't wait. So that sounds awesome. How about you?
I think for me, the phrase, think globally, act locally is coming to mind. Yes. Because, I'm totally supportive of what Donna said, but I'm constantly thinking of ways that I might be off-putting to other women in my organization, or ways I can encourage them the way I wasn't necessarily when I was younger. Trying to go out of my way to build some networks of women in the workforce and encourage them to be leaders. A lot of the women who I have worked with who've come in as technologists with their male counterparts, the men have gone up to be senior leaders, and the women have stayed right there doing the same job 10, 20 years later, and try to have those one-on-one conversations with them about if that's right for them, then great, but could they foresee themselves doing something that's a little bit more challenging or being a role model for other people? So to me, it's really about what I can do personally.
Love that. That is so important. I've got to tell you, being a senior woman, age-wise and otherwise. It really, you do attract other women, and I think that to build that kind of local support and not just always look for the big answer outside is so critical. Absolutely. We'll close with you.
So just a couple points on this issue, which I do think is hugely important. It's not just the cybersecurity sector, of course. It's sort of pervasive across tech and telecom. And one thing that we're doing in the U.S. government is the International Telecommunications Union. You asked some of the international organizations that we participate in. That's one, and that organization has 5 leadership positions that are elected. In the past 150 years, they haven't elected one woman to those positions. So this year, Doreen Bogdan-Martin is running for the development sector, and the U.S. government is very much supporting her candidacy and has been out there talking about. And she's a phenomenal leader, and so hopefully that organization may take a step in a direction of having a woman in a leadership position.
Small victories.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it's nice to see the federal government coming out and very much being supportive of her candidacy. So it's across, and at NTIA we do a lot of study looking at internet usage across, and at the early ages, actually boys and girls equal numbers, actually that stays consistent. That tend to equal in terms of interest in the internet and using the internet, and so it's sort of the question of like, why? Where is this happening? And I think that, a little bit of it is, around, there's a lot of look at STEM, how we can get more girls interested in an early age. I will give kudos out to the Girl Scouts, who now have 2 patches out there for cybersecurity for girls that they can earn, which is a nice advancement. So I think there's optimism we can have. There are things that are happening, but we're not there yet, and I don't think we've fully diagnosed either why there's interest along with the girls, and then at some stage, even though there's up through the university years, there's involvement, but I agree at the leadership level somehow that drops off.
Starts dropping off, right?
Yes.
And there's statistics that back that up, and absolutely, and it does feel like things are moving, but right. I agree with it doesn't feel like we've quite broken through, like with the what and the why and the how, right? Those basic things. But we won't end on a depressive note. We'll end on the fact that we are making progress. So with that, I'm going to open up for questions. We have 10 minutes. Ramesh.
All right.
By the way, I just have to say, when Ramesh was part of my team, and at that point, my directs were 50% women. So we're slightly less than 50% women now. But,
so thank you, Nooper. And I have to say, I'm so proud to be sitting here and watching a panel of all female cybersecurity experts and leaders. So thank you for a wonderful panel and the rich discussion we just had. I think, Nooper, you touched on this topic, but I wanted to come back to this, Donna, on the issue of cloud and the evolution that's happening within the cloud. It's no longer infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service, and now we're talking about function as a service, with the deployment of Lambda. And we're talking about state of cybersecurity. I worry about when the function as a service goes rogue, or when the function as a service that may not be harmful during the business day or hours, but then it could be harmful against one target and not harmful against another target. So I'm wondering what NIST or perhaps any of the panelists, what you guys are thinking about in terms of scenario building, in terms of detection, in terms of principles that needs to be put in place in order to prevent that potential rogueness of function as a service.
Right. So I think a lot of that starts really at the policy level, and what are the appropriate policies that the cloud, or as some of the activity inside a cloud that's controlled by you, and how do you trust, those policies are actually being implemented. And so NIST is working very collaboratively with industry from the high up in the stack all the way down to hardware, and understanding those trust layers as you think about cloud and how you can implement those policies and know at all levels of the stack what you're really getting and what's happening, and to be able to have that visibility into your kind of work environment in the cloud. That's critically important as we think about functions in a cloud and bringing in some of these different AI models and things like that into cloud, is that you have to understand what your policies need to be, and then you have to have confidence that they're actually being implemented. And the kinds of security controls that you have in place are really there. And how can you step back and take a look? Not what you thought was happening when you first entered into an agreement, but what's happening today and what's happening, and having that sort of assurance at that point in time. I think that really goes a long way to having the trust and the functionality that we want to have as we use that as an important tool for us.
So, you know, we actually struggle with this, right? So, which is why I want to talk with you after. So we just last week released our multi-factor authentication capability for our customers, right? And big deal, you know our volumes. And we've built a lot of those services in serverless. So it's a bunch of Lambda functions that fire up for a minute and go away, right? And how the heck do you answer that question? If they did something they weren't supposed to do, how do you even know after the fact, right? Because they're no longer there. So, and we had lots of discussions in our team, is how do we make sure that what we're building is secure? And until we know how to do this, we went back to basics. We just said, we are going to build security in. So we made sure the code was as clean as it could be. We have like 100% passing score requirement for static analysis, for example, right? For those functions that we build, right? So we just went back to basics, because I have to tell you, I don't think we know the answer to that question. Because there is no way to measure what the impact of something as ephemeral as a serverless thing is. So that's what's uncomfortable about it. But then you just go back to the basics, and hopefully that works. So.
Thank you, ladies. Fascinating panel. Kristen, Judge, good to see some of you. I've been a huge NIST fan, a NICE fan, been there since the very beginning with Ernest McDuffie.
Yes,
it's amazing to see how far it's come. And as I mentor folks, I encourage people to show young folks the framework for the jobs. And it's one of the best documents I've seen to let people know, look, here's all the things you can do in cybersecurity. So thank you. I have to start off by saying thank you for all the work that you do. I've been trying to take Pat Toth's reign and continue on with small businesses and the cybersecurity framework. And I've created courses for small businesses and a course for individuals based on the cybersecurity framework. And I wanted to get your opinion, all four of you ladies. Do you think it's okay to take the 5 basic tenets of the cybersecurity framework, the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and use that to educate the general public? Because I've gotten really great responses about it, but I want to make sure that you all see some value. Certainly, we're not going to take people through all 39 pages or all the different steps, depending on where they need to be. But what do you think about being able to use that framework in any conversation about security?
So from the small business aspect, NIST has put out some guidelines, and then of course we've referenced some of the very good work from our colleagues as well around framework, and we continue that dialogue. Our Manufacturing Extension Partnership has put out some guidelines to be used in small business cybersecurity for manufacturing as well. And I've been having some good conversations with folks around small business, around not-for-profits, and really a lot of the people that we need to work with in these spaces are smaller organizations that are, and it's made up of people. So as we think about this, and we think about some of the good work that DHS does and the entire federal government and industry around Cybersecurity Awareness Month, making sure that they have tools that are developed and easy to understand. Again, I get back to one of my points I made earlier. Today, we cannot be in a position where it's just cybersecurity people talking to cybersecurity people if we are going to address the kinds of challenges that we have in the nation. It doesn't mean everybody has to be a cybersecurity expert. But we have to do a much better job of understanding those vocabularies, just like you talked about earlier. So I think that is a key piece. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else to build on? Do we have time for one more in the back?
Since I'm holding the mic, I'll ask the last one.
Okay.
So I apologize for using the Q word, but I was kind of wondering if either of your organizations have anything in the quantum computing, quantum communication space. Sure. So you mentioned, NIST is doing work on post-quantum crypto. Was there any work being done on looking at quantum communication and quantum key distribution in particular?
Mm-hmm. So NIST has a program on quantum. So a large program in the quantum space. The first part of it is really looking at quantum computing and the components needed in that space. That's led by our physics laboratory. Our information technology laboratory has a big program with the University of Maryland and NSA working in quantum information science. And that is thinking about quantum computing and how do you take advantage of quantum computers well beyond just the cybersecurity space. In addition to that, we have, for a number of years, looked at what I call quantum key management. Some people call that quantum cryptography, but as you're trying to push keys out in cyberspace, there have been times when we've been able to push those keys out over, say, a mile and had the advantage across the world at that point in time. But looking at different quantum key management architectures. And then, of course, our work in the cybersecurity space has really been around quantum-resistant cryptographic algorithms and how do we have cryptography that can be used that won't fall to classical computers or quantum computers. And we put out a call for algorithms. We had about 80-plus algorithms come from all around the world. And we finished phase 1 with our analysis on those. And we will bring this down to pick some number of quantum-resistant algorithms that can be used. We have some work that I'm interested in seeing us do, and our mathematicians aren't happy because they're so busy with the algorithm competition, or algorithm selection, rather. I don't want to use the word competition, but being able to think about when these algorithms are out there, how do we get them in use? What does it mean for the infrastructure? What kinds of protocols work today? If there are modifications needed, how will we need to modify those, et cetera? So we have a very extensive program in that space.
It's good to know. Good. I think we are out of time, a minute over. So I really want to thank all of you. It's just been absolutely wonderful. I've learned so much. So thank you so much. Yeah.